Welcome back to Integration, where we're broadcasting live from Somalia in our Let's Talk About It segment today. Guess what, guys? There is so many positive things happening in this country, and I think one of the greatest things that we can talk about today is the role of women coming back into the country, and not just women, but actually professional working women who are coming back to contribute their skills. I have two panelists here with me today that will talk about the diaspora, women, and their return back to Somalia, and we'll also speak with one woman who's a local professional who's actually never left her country. Today I have with me SAGAL BIHI, who is a constitutional affairs consultant in the Somali government, and also ANAB Noor, who's a lawyer in human rights who came back to contribute to her country. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know today's a work day, and I shaqada hamar ma bilaadato ilaa like 2 o'clock maybe, huh? What time are you guys shaqada bilaadan?
Actually, I think on the contrary, it starts a little bit earlier than back in the UK or the US. But the only difference is you finish much earlier than back home.
Yeah, I'm amazed that people are up here like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Shops tend to open as early as 7 a.m.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
So Anab, let's start with you. You came back. You're a lawyer. You specialize in human rights. What are you doing here?
I ask myself that same question sometimes, but it feels like home. I think for me, I made the decision out of the blue one day to relocate. My intention initially was to relocate somewhere within East Africa, close to home, but I think at the time I was a little bit scared to come. And around November 2012, I decided to finally make the trip back home, and that was for the first time in 25 years. Not that I remember much when I left, but it was my first time back, and it came as a shock because you have all these like different ideas about what you think home is like, and then you get here and there's so much life on the streets and people are getting on with their lives. I think it came as a huge shock to me. So after that I thought, you know, why not? I could work in Somalia, and that was the intention by moving to East Africa anyway. So here I am, 2 years later.
So you specialize in law.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of human rights violations in this country when it comes to the role of women. How do you think you can contribute to that side?
You're right. I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of human rights issues in this country. But I think for me, coming here initially, I realized that for a long time I had a very Eurocentric view about things. And I had to sort of step back and decide, okay, you've got to find a way of dealing with this that's appropriate in the context that you are at the moment. So for me, I think the idea is to set up a law center, and I would like to specifically focus on human rights violations and human rights issue. I've always believed in having a fair and equal access to the law and to the justice system, and I would like to be able to provide free legal services to those that can't afford it.
Oh, that's amazing. So Sagal, you've never left, girl. You're here. What do you think about all these women coming back and like taking charge in this country?
Actually, I think this country needs every help it could get, whether it's its own people or Somali coming from diaspora, male and female. And sometimes I believe we need beyond that. We need every help we could get.
What do you think is the challenge that you face as a professional working woman in Hamar?
To be honest, in Somalia in general, being women is a challenge itself. Because we had and still have strong women who really are very opinionated and who can make things done. But still, people will, when it comes to the professional level, that's when you get always commented at, and people will tell you, you're women, why are you doing this, and very small things. You will always get that eye of you're women, you shouldn't be here, like you should be disassociate from your like colleagues, partners, whoever you're working with, which is male.
How do you work along that frame, like when somebody says things like that to you? Do you challenge them, or do you just ignore it as a woman in this country?
Both. Sometimes you have to tell them. You feel like there is occasions that you feel you have to speak up, and there are occasions that you feel I'm not going to talk to you, but I will be here, and you have to deal with me.
So take your space over.
Exactly. You don't go back, you don't step back, you step forward and you try to push it harder. And just because of that, you feel a few years ago, role of woman was not, where it is right now. At least the noise, not it cannot practically, it might not be the way we want it. and we don't participate the way we wanted, but at least the noise and the notion is a little bit higher, and there are a lot of voices. And one thing that I really like my friends from diaspora, like female young from diaspora, they have, like, they come from a background where there is a human rights, where there is a gender, equality to a certain level, and they have always something that they fight. Because we locals, like most of us, we've been here, we've been last 25 years, like, told, you're women, you don't do that, you don't, you have to cover up.
So do you think that women have kind of accepted that role because they've been defined by
back
them?
in our heads, we
because
feel
it's
like
very unusual for you to be dressed like this,
Exactly.
looking like a working professional woman, and going to an office right in the city, right? Because when I drive around, that's not the norm, right?
You like every day, women, like local women, sometimes tell me, why don't you dress differently?
Really?
Yeah, it happens. Because back of our heads, we accepted our role of like always backstage. Always, you don't like. بدل ما فريسين كرتين.
شاه لما عبي
شاه لما كلا بعبي كرتين. ماشي صفر يعني فريسين كرتين. You can talk to men head to head. You have to always be behind him.
Yeah.
You have to which is not the case. Which is not the case. We're professionals. We have something to do. And men always will tell you about حشاد. When it comes, like, when the argument gets very, and you're talking about something very, practical, very professional.
Yeah.
You're in office meeting, and you try to take your role, and the last card
But
they will
don't you
use
think
is your women.
these challenges, women in the West also face it? There's always a glass ceiling everywhere you go.
Exactly, except that they have somehow a system that they can turn to.
Accountability.
Exactly,
Yeah.
we don't have that here.
I think if I could just add
ANAB,
to that, I think the difference is in the West, it's not as obvious as it's here. Here you're undermined on quite a regular basis, and a way of doing that is a lot of female characteristics come up as a result, and people say, or you'll sit in a room and then people will make a comment about your looks, and they will feel entitled to do that. It's very unprofessional. I think here it's you won't always get invited to the big meetings. You won't always be informed about it.
Okay, so there's a private, like, VIP parties that women don't even get invited to here.
Yeah, I think the culture is it's changing now, but it's in such a way where like I can give you an example. In the UK, a lot of business talk tend to happen in places like the pub, whereas here it's men tend to take these conversations certain hours of the night when you probably don't feel safe enough.
So meesha chat baa la isla cunayaa, so dumarkii lama invite garanayo. Okay,
Not
let's keep
always,
it real.
Yeah. But I also see a lot
But
of
isn't that the
changes.
same? Okay, let's be fair. Isn't that the same thing that women complain about in the West, where men go golfing together and the women that want to climb the ladder don't get invited? So these challenges are not unique just to our country, right?
No, they're not. And I agree with you, they're definitely not unique to...
Join us next week as we continue our conversation with ANAB Noor and SAGAL BIHI on the challenges diaspora women face coming back to Somalia.